Hello and welcome to the Royal Blue YouTube channel. It's Monday night, we are live, and I am your host, Ian Croll. Joining me for this deadline day show to talk all things Everton, we have Joe Thomas. Joe, how are things? All good?
Yeah, all good. Cheers, Ian. A little bit quieter than probably expected to be. But yeah, ticking over towards, well, a couple of hours now away from the door, the window slamming shut as everyone says it does. So just keeping an eye out to see what's going on, mate.
Good stuff. We've also got joining us on tonight's show, Tony Scott. Tony, how are things? Okay?
Yeah, all good, thanks, Ian. I was hoping Joe would be a lot more busier. But fingers crossed, there's still a couple of hours to go. Fingers crossed.
It's the only reason we managed to get him on the show because he's not that busy. Otherwise, if he was busy right away, we probably wouldn't be able to grace with his presence, to be honest. So, but it's good to have Joe on. Just a little warning that we are doing this podcast remote. I know Joe is in the office, I'm at home, and Tony's at home. So, if there's any Wi-Fi issues, any signal issues, then I do apologise, but we will try our best to bring you this pod. And see where we go. Obviously, tonight's agenda, it is deadline day, and we are going to to discuss incomings and any potential outgoings. Not that there is much going on. Maybe one or two things to discuss, but I'm sure Joe will be able to bring us the latest, and yeah, me and Tony will react and discuss to that as well. Obviously, big game for Everton on Saturday. We got the win. We did a podcast earlier today with Chris Beasley and Gav Buckland, so we reacted to the Leicester win there, but we'll also give Joe and Tony the opportunity to have their say on that as well. So as usual, just give this video a thumbs up, drop us a like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. I guess, Joe, we will start with transfers, considering it is deadline day. I know you love a good state of play headline, a good state of play tweet. So what is the state of play at this current moment in time?
Yeah, it's pretty quiet, to be honest. We're still, we're still technically waiting for the first signing of the freaking groups era for the men's team, at least, to be confirmed, and that's going to be Charlie Alcaraz. There's nothing to suggest anything's fallen through there. Loan deal, it'll probably include a clause which means that Everton will have to buy him, make that deal permanent, providing he meets certain performance-based criteria. Yeah, I mean, technically, Flamengo, much to Everton's chagrin, announced this on Friday night. Clearly, it wasn't quite ready then. But yeah, I think it's just a case of dotting the I's and crossing the T's. I think Alcaraz is going to be an Everton player, and he is going to strengthen Moyes' attacking options. Beyond that, it doesn't look like there's anything in the works right now. So there's still a couple of hours. We know it can go right to the depth like it did in the summer when Armando Broja came in. Look at all the noises at this time on deadline day in the summer were saying the same thing, that it was looking quiet, and then all of a sudden an opportunity came up and they took it with Broja. But at the moment, there's nothing to suggest that's going to be the case again. I think, look, Everton wanted to do business. David Moyes has been pretty public in knowing what he wanted to do. And he's repeated that desire to bring in players since he got in here, and that's that was even before you had the likes of Oral Mangala, Dominic Calvert-Lewin having their serious injuries. So I think there'll be a bit of disappointment, a bit of frustration that nothing else has come. But I do also think that probably the pitch has changed a little bit since, say, a fortnight ago, and the breathing space that Everton have got after 3 consecutive wins, a little bit. The form of Beto, albeit only being 1 game, obviously scored twice at the weekend. That helps with that striker thing. And this belief that Broja might be back a little bit earlier than first feared, all combining to create an atmosphere, I think, where the freaking group, when Moyes have decided that if there isn't there that's really tempting them, they're not going to make a move, they're not going to commit money just for the sake of it. So that's probably where we are right now, just waiting to see if any opportunity that's too good to be true emerges in the final hours of the window, and if not, battening down the hatches and trying to do what they can with the squad they've currently got.
Tony, I mean, obviously in the pod cover, like the last week or so, you were saying it was imperative that Everton brought in reinforcements. That was even before injuries, I guess. I think I'm saying that is right. So, has your mindset changed slightly even with the results, and are you going to be disappointed, if we don't bring anyone in of worth?
This was before, obviously, the 3 wins out of 4, wasn't it? And I think if you put it into context now, the fact that we are 9 points above the relegation zone, effectively 10 with the goal difference, you'd be pretty difficult for the likes of Ipswich and especially Southampton and Leicester to catch Everton, looking on the basis of the points tally Everton have currently got. So you're probably expecting Ipswich and the likes of them to win 5 of their 15 games. That's providing Everton don't win any. So would we need to sign a striker now on the basis of winning another 2 or 3 games? We'd probably get away with not signing a striker. So that was before them 3 fantastic results. So, yeah, my mind's changed due to the performances, due to the results, due to the feel-good factor. Ideally, I would have liked another striker, but if that striker isn't available and you get an offer and, I don't know, maybe a loan player that maybe not fit the criteria, whatever, and looking for, maybe David Moyes just sat down and thought, do you know what, instead of spending, 2 or 3, 4, 5 million on a centre forward now, I can go and get one that I ideally want in the summer, which kind of makes sense from a PSR perspective as well. So I think the results have had a huge mitigation in terms of where Everton stand in the transfer market.
And Joe, just I know you've just written a piece there on Harrison Armstrong. So he's obviously joined Derby County on loan. Would you expect there to be some sort of callback clause in there, say if the Corey got injured or another couple of players got injured? I mean, I think I like the idea of a loan, of Harrison going out on loan. He obviously needs the minutes, and it'd be nice if he was to start getting some first team football, even if it was only for Derby County. No disrespect to them, of course, but I'm just thinking Everton right now being quite unlucky with injuries. So would you expect something in the clause to say if we need him back, he's coming back?
Yeah, I'd be surprised, to be honest, Ian, because the thing with the recall clauses is normally you can only activate them within the transfer windows. So, for instance, when you have a recall clause in most deals in a summer deal, it can only be triggered in the January transfer window when they come back. So quite often that's kind of a technicality that, got to be honest, I didn't know about before this job, but more often than not, that tends to be the case. Obviously, the club that's taken them, Derby County will likely have paid a bit of money for this, and they want a degree of security on their loan. I remember finding this out with Ellis Sims back when the Frank Lampard, when Everton were having another striker crisis. Obviously, that season, which, well, it was the Christmas going into the January where, well, let's be honest, everything descended into utter chaos. And it was clear, because with Calvert-Lewin struggling with injuries, Mopé not doing anything form-wise, it was clear that they needed a striker. And one of the things they looked to do was bring back Ellis Sims, who was scoring goals in Sunderland. And that they basically announced that they were going to do that a week before the January window opened, but they couldn't do it until the January window opened on the 1st of January, which when he came back. So no, I don't think there would be something like that in there, Ian. I don't really think it's that much of a gamble, just because I think it's just so much to ask a player of his youth and inexperience to be able to do a job at this level. I think if it ever got to the point where Everton were relying on him to come in and save them, then that would be, that would be disastrous. Not that I'm saying that he's not promising or talented or anything like that. It's been a joy to watch his rise. I was there in Salford in pre-season when he came on for the senior team for the first time, and then watched him since as he's made his debuts against Spurs, first senior start against Southampton, and since then, highly rated player. I actually spoke to David Moyes about him on Friday, and obviously Moyes has only been there for a couple of weeks, but Moyes rates him really highly as well. And it was quite interesting actually when I asked him about that on Friday, whether or not Harrison might go out on loan. He was kind of erring towards him, probably not, because you're saying he likes him and he thinks it's a body that in a squad that doesn't have that many options. But I guess maybe what's changed since then will, again, like we've already alluded to, massive 3 points against a relegation rival, against Leicester. Obviously Ipswich failing to beat Southampton felt like a nail in their coffin, certainly in terms of catching Everton as well. James Garner came back. There was a lot of concern around James Garner going into the game on Saturday. You know, Everton felt that they started him because they felt they had no other choice, really. But bearing in mind he's been out for, 3 or 4 months with a back injury, it really was a case of bringing him back earlier than anybody really wanted to do so. But we know that he came through that game, played well, obviously put that beautiful ball through for Beto second. And we also got a little glimpse of Timo Robenham as well. So he's come back, and you know, it's FA Cup at the weekend. So it's 10 days until the next game, which is the derby, isn't it? So both of those players are only going to get fitter and stronger in that period. So Derby have come, probably would have offered a bit of money to get him on loan as well. They've probably looked at it and gone, for us, for the player, this is actually a pretty decent opportunity. I think we'll wish him all the best. Hopefully he'll go out there, get a few. I mean, it's not going to be an easy environment for him. I think Paul Warne, the manager there, is under a lot of pressure, and Derby are in a relegation battle. So it's an interesting environment for him to go into. But fingers crossed he goes there and does well, and everybody benefits. And come the summer, we've got a teenager there with significant first-team experience that can, Moyes can take another look at, and as he plans for the first season at Bramley Moor.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, so the teams in the league obviously aren't spending a lot in this January transfer window, and we know PSR has kind of killed the market, and we can come on to that. But from the signings that I think Ipswich have made a couple, I think Wolves have made a couple that I saw as well. Any concerns with regards to what they've done in the January transfer window so far? I mean, I know we're kind of looking up rather than maybe looking down now. We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but we're probably closer to the likes of, well, not probably, we are closer to the likes of Tottenham, United and West Ham, who are all above us.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about the bottom three. You would say you want to put Leicester in there. No, Wolves are currently in the bottom three, but I think it's Leicester. Is it Leicester currently that thing stand? But I think the three teams that came up will just struggle and go straight back down. You normally look at relegated teams or teams that have just come up from the Championship, and you normally say, if they were relegated, would you take any of their players? And this season, you look at it, and if Southampton got relegated, you'd probably take Tara Dibbling out of their current squad. If Ipswich were relegated, you'd probably obviously take Delap. But if Leicester were relegated, you probably wouldn't take any of their players at all. Currently, on base of what we witnessed at Goodison Park the weekend, I think that tells you a lot about the state of their squads. So they can buy one or two players. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference compared to where Everton are. It was interesting what Joe was saying there about Harrison Armstrong. That is a concern of mine, to be honest, Ian, because Harrison Armstrong are great. I really do. And I think alone will do him the world of good. But I just worry about that environment that he is going through. Derby County, they've been struggling since December. In fact, they haven't won a game since December. They've lost about 8 or 9 on the spin. Managers under pressure, Paul Warne. They don't play great football, to be honest. So he's going into a really tough environment there. And I worry that as an 18-year-old that's been on the fringes of the first team, that's going to a struggling Championship side, the fans are on the manager's back. They're not playing good football. They've lost 8 on the spin. That's not a nice environment for any 18-year-old to go and play in. So I worry about that. Maybe it may bring something out in him in terms of his character and his personality, want to get on the ball. But it's a tough environment for an 18-year-old to go into a struggling Championship club with no wins in the last 8 or 9.
Joe, any regrets with regards to any missing out on any targets? I mean, I don't know any specifics other than maybe Evan Ferguson that we were interested in. I think Joe's disappeared off there. See if he comes back. I knew we'd have Wi-Fi signals issues, so didn't I? I told you.
Yeah,
I'll ask you. So, I mean, we don't know exactly, some of the players that Everton were in for. I know there was one muted, and it was Evan Ferguson, who's now gone to West Ham on loan. If that was a loan deal from Brighton to West Ham, it probably wouldn't have worked for us because obviously we've already met our loan criteria, I guess. Any regrets on not getting anyone who you think would have improved the team, not just now as a quick fix, but maybe in the next 12 to 18 months? I appreciate it's hard to just think off the top of your head.
Yeah, well, I look at names out there. I'd love to lap at Ipswich. I really would. I think he'll be in the England setup really soon. I think he's ideal to where a David Moyes team will play. He plays that lone striker. He puts himself about. He scores goals at a struggling side. I think he's ideal. So, but I think there'll be teams in and around Europe that will be in for the lap in the summer, to be honest, if Ipswich are relegated. So he is a striker that hopefully Moyes is keeping his powder dry for, to be honest. That'd be ideal for me if the likes of he comes available in the summer, if there's something in his contract, if Ipswich are relegated, I'd be all over him, to be honest. The likes of Evan Ferguson, yeah, he's highly rated. He's got a pretty strong injury record himself, and we've got enough of injured strikers at the moment, haven't we? With the likes of Broja and Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Youssef Chermiti, they're never off the treatment table, the three of them. So, with the likes of Evan Ferguson, he's got a really tough injury record. So you want to try and stay away from that. And one thing David Moyes is quite astute for is when it comes to recruitment. And this is what's going to be interesting over these next, 6 months in terms of the players Everton are linked with. We've seen Everton was strongly linked pre-David Moyes with, I think it's Ernest Newmar, who was applying his trade in France, playing for Lyon, and Everton were close to that signing apparently. And since David Moyes has come into the job, that seems to have petered away. So it's going to be interesting, the scale of the identity and the profile Everton now go for with David Moyes as the manager. Kevin Thelwell's obviously been there for a long period of time. He's got, 5 months left on his deal. So it's going to be very, very interesting, the dynamics of the profile of player we go for now that David Moyes is the manager. He has said on record several times in press conferences that he knows what Evertonians want. We've wasted a lot of money in the past. He wants that type of character. He's tipped into the Championship once or twice before, and he wouldn't be ashamed to doing it himself again in the near future. So I trust David Moyes with Everton's money and recruitment. I'd love him to get the old gang in, so to speak. His scouting was second to none. So it's going to be interesting, the landscape, how it unfolds over these next couple of months.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Joe's having severe Wi-Fi and signal problems, so he's jumped off for now. I don't know whether he's going to try and jump back on, but we'll continue on. So we'll power through, and while we continue to talk, I'll message Joe just to see what he's doing. But like I say, I think he's having a few issues. I mean, I think everyone would have liked the sign, and I know we're getting Alcaraz on loan, who's going to fill the Mangala void. Obviously, we've got James Garner back as well. We've also got Tim Iroboumam, who's an option. I think the last three wins out of 4 have completely changed the mood to a point, and it wasn't desperation as such, before or after the Villa game, but it was concerning, because I thought we did think, even with Calvert-Lewin fit, that we still needed a striker, because obviously Broja picked up that injury. Unfortunately, Calvert-Lewin then went and picked up an injury, but hopefully Beto will now step up. He has stepped up already, and hopefully it's not just a one-off. My concern was that we were going to bring in players, or a player where we were going to spend a couple of millions of pounds on, and it was literally going to be a quick fix. And by the 12, 18-month period, he'd be surplus to requirements. He'd be, dead wood. And how many times have we kind of said that over the year? So I mean, January is a very interesting market, but it's not a good market either, is it? Let's face it.
No, it's not. And listen, you just mentioned Evan Ferguson there, but has anyone bought anyone today that you'd be thinking, we should have gone in for him? There's been no one out there really. Obviously, Rashford went to Aston Villa, and even Rashford's a gamble. He's on 350 grand. Manchester United are paying a lot of his wages, and that'll be a gamble. I think there'll be not many Evertonians that'll be up for signing Marcus Rashford, to be honest. So I think there's not many players out there that have been signing for football clubs over the last 48 hours, especially tonight, that you're quite envious of. Yeah, Evan Ferguson, we've just touched on there. You'd like him in an ideal world, but I've just mentioned his injury record there. So I'm sure David Moyes now he'll be happy with Alcaraz through the door. That's probably why he's let Harrison Armstrong go on loan. I think we're quite top heavy there, to be honest, in that area as well. You've just mentioned James Garner, got Tim Iroboumam. You've got obviously just a guy, Corey can play in that role as well. Ashley Young can also fill into that role. So there's options there for Everton to mix and match with that midfield role. So that isn't a concern of mine. The concern of mine obviously is Beto up front. Now, listen, I'm not the biggest fan of Beto, but at the same token, he done a job for us at the weekend. Having said that, we won't meet a worse defence in the Premier League from now till the end of the season in Leicester. They were awful, and they made Beto look like a Champions League striker, in my opinion. I worry about the games when we're playing against Liverpool, how Beto's going to face. And listen, not many decent strikers get changed out of Virgil van Dijk anyway, let alone Beto. But I worry about these next couple of games in there in terms of like Bournemouth in the FA Cup, Liverpool obviously in the league, Palace away, we may nick a draw there. But again, it's all on the points we've just got. And then 3 wins have been, they've been like a lifesaver to us, haven't they? They wasn't expected, to be honest. I think on the flip side, if we looked at them games, you probably would have took a draw at Brighton. Even the way Everton were playing, you probably would have took a draw against Tottenham. And the win at the weekend as well against Leicester, you probably would have settled for 5 points there overall. But we've ended up accumulating 9. And that's been a massive, massive bonus. And as I touched on at the start of the show, Ian, it's like a 10-point gap we've got now with the goal difference. You've seen teams like Wolves and teams in the relegation zone on minus 24, minus 20, and I think we're on minus 9 or something like that. So the goal difference is a big slide as well. So we're effectively 10 points above the relegation zone with games to play. And I just can't for the life of me see Ipswich, Leicester, and especially Southampton picking up 5, 6 wins now, and that's providing we don't win anymore. And we've got games against Ipswich at home to come and Southampton at home to come, and a lot more winnable games as well. So yeah, it's in our own hands. If you're a betting man like myself, Everton away, they're like 25-1 to be relegated. It's about 5 or 6 teams in the market before you get to Everton. In fact, Manchester City are closer to the relegation market than Everton as things stand. I think probably because they are expecting a big point deduction. Whether it happens remains to be seen. But no, I think Everton, them three wins have been like a lifesaver to us. And I think that's probably made David Moyes just keep his powder dry for the summer in the transfer market, especially with that striker.
Yeah, the City one's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, I don't know when we're expected to, get the decision on that. But another theory behind them spending quite a bit of money. Not that they need an excuse to spend money, City, but spending money in this market is that they may be expecting some sort of a transfer ban in the summer and beyond. So, yeah, I guess what's this space? We'll find out. I mean, so another positive, I guess, and Joe touched upon it a little bit. And this is not confirmed; it's just kind of rumours/reports, is that Broja's and Calvert-Lewin's injuries maybe aren't as bad as first feared. So obviously there's no time or anything being put on that, but there was rumours going around that Calvert-Lewin could be back with at least 2 months of the season to go, and even Broja could be back with a couple of games to go. So I guess there's another reason, maybe not, especially with obviously Beto scoring those 2 goals and looking like he's the main striker now. Again, not to go into the transfer market.
Yeah, with Dominic Calvert-Lewin, if the news is good and that he is, obviously the news will be good if he is to return sooner rather than later. That's fantastic for Everton, because obviously soon as David Moyes came to Everton, you just seen a new lease of life from Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And to be fair to Sean Dyche, over the last 10 months, Dominic Calvert-Lewin's injury record's been really, really good. He's probably played more football in the last 12 months than what he has in his entire Everton career, to be fair to Sean Dyche. With Broja, regards to Broja, listen, I just think that was it's baffling, that signing, to be honest. It really baffles me. I think we've wasted a loan. We bought him injured. He's injury prone. He's now injured. He'll just continue to be injured. And I just think he's one of them players, Ian, that his body's not fit for purpose to play Premier League football. He's just going to continue to pick up injuries wherever he plays. Just a matter if he plays in, relegated teams who are struggling to stay in the division, teams like Chelsea who are obviously fighting for Europe. He was previously at Southampton, previously at Fulham. He was just continuously injured. His body can't cope with Premier League football. And it was baffling that Everton were actually in for him. They signed him injured. He didn't kick a ball for us for about 3 months. And lo and behold, when he did get fit for us, he got injured. And I expect him again. If he does get fit, he will get injured again. He's just not built for Premier League football. I feel sorry for the lads. He looks a quality footballer. He looks as if he's got all the tools to play Premier League football. But sadly, his body lets him down.
Yeah, disappointing. Obviously, I think on the surface beforehand it may have looked like a good deal, certainly because we didn't need to pay his wages until he, made his first appearance. I think on the substitutes bench, we obviously tried to be careful with him and only start him or started giving him minutes when he was fully fit. But it seemed like an impact injury, and yeah, he's going to be out of the team for this foreseeable future. Just a quick word, just take a little sidestep on PSR. So basically killed the market, not just in this transfer window, but in a lot of transfer windows in my eyes. It's going to be moving to a more, I think the phrase is a squad cost ratio, something along those lines. I don't know too much about it myself, but for me, if you're still implementing rules over what teams can spend, I don't think there's going to be much difference as to what PSR was. I might be completely wrong. So how do you foresee things going? Certainly because this is the end of PSR now for this season anyway. Like I say, it's going to be moved to the squad cost ratio in next summer.
Well, Everton's PSR resets anyway, doesn't it? So you've obviously, when they go into the Bramley Moor, they will be able to spend the cash, and that was always the concern with the previous owner, that we just didn't have any cash to spend anyway. There was no cash flow. With the Freaking Group, they are filthy rich. They have promised to spend, and Everton are going to need to spend. There's, as we've touched on several times on the podcast, Ian, there's eight players, isn't it, that contracts run out. Now, I've spoke to a lot of Everton fans over the past week or so, and they're saying, I wouldn't keep Zakori, I wouldn't keep just a guy, I wouldn't keep Calvert-Lewin, I'd let Michael Keane go. And you go, well, you can't let them all go. You will need to retain some of them, because you can't just sign about 10 players. It's just near enough impossible. I know Nottingham Forest done it, but obviously they had no players at all when they come up from the Championship. There's a lot of players on loan at the time, so that's why they had to buy about 17 players. They literally had no players at all when they come up. Whereas in Everton, they have got players. They'll just need to retain a few of them. It's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next 5 months. You may see an uplift in form with a few players. You've seen Zakori start playing well. It's just a guy start playing well. Now, these are players whose contracts are up at the end of the summer. Now, they're playing for new contracts. So Dominic Calvert-Lewin now, on the face of it, will be thinking, hang on a minute, I've got a contract to play for. There's not many clubs that we want to sign me in the summer. Injured with my injury records. He scored, 3 or 4 goals this season. So he may look at the Everton contract right now and going, I might just sign this while the going's good. Do you know what I mean? So it's going to be a lot of interesting conversations. We know there's a lot of loans go back. Like Jack Harrison goes back on loan. Mangala will be going back. Broja, as we've just touched on as well. Michael Keane's contract expires. Ashley Young's contract as well. Seamus Coleman's contract as well. There's a lot of contracts that expire at the end of July. So it's going to be fascinating to see what David Moyes does. He will keep, obviously, 2, 3, maybe even 4 of them players. But the ones that are released, we're going to have to replace. So, as I touched on there, it's going to be interesting. The PSR is going to be fascinating to see what happens with that, as you've just touched on, with the ratio there. You look at it where, in terms of the Premier League now, and I think Newcastle are going through the same situation. They've hit that glass ceiling where they spent a lot of money, 2.5 years ago, and they can't spend any more money now because PSR doesn't let them. And obviously all the Newcastle fans are going mad with the Premier League, pretty much like us, situation we had where you can't spend money now because you've spent a lot, obviously, a couple of years ago. I think Newcastle have just had to sell 2 players as well to suit their PSR needs. Almiron was sold. I think Lewis Kelly was sold to Juventus as well. So there's a lot of Newcastle fans up in arms. They would have liked to have kicked on. They've probably seen this season now they're close to they're close to 4th place themselves, aren't they? The squad's just almost there, and they probably want to cement themselves in the Champions League. And PSR doesn't allow them to. They just had to sell 2 players themselves. So, yeah, it'll be all new to everyone in the summer. But I'm sure Everton will do the due diligence They've been around the block before in terms of finances. So I'm sure they'll get it correct on and off the pitch.
Great comment here from someone who says, I'll put it up on the screen. I want to know if we are signing Tom Fellows tonight. Maybe we can do a quick whip round to get Joe Thomas some better internet. I know we were linked with is it West Brom midfielder Tom Fellows?
He's a winger. He's a winger, Tom Fellows, yeah. Quite a lot of assists for West Bromwich Albion this season. I think he's got 2 goals and about 14 assists. And I think he's been an admirer of Everton. Have been an admirer of him for about 12 months now. I don't think it was ever going to happen today. West Brom were never obviously going to sell him to Everton. And I don't think Everton have actually got the money in regards to PSR to actually buy him this evening. But he maybe wants to look out for on the radar this summer. He probably suits the profile of what David Moyes looks for in terms of he loves a championship bargains, doesn't he? A lot of assists, a lot of goals, but whether he can do it in the Premier League, we've seen many, many times players that have come from the Championship and have really, really struggled. But we've seen many times players who have come from the Championship and have been a massive success, especially under David Moyes. You look at the likes of tonight, Jared Bowen scoring for West Ham at Stamford Bridge. He was a David Moyes signing from Hull City to West Ham. And they're the type of signings that you want, that you'd love at Everton. Players with a hungry, young, point to prove, want to stake the claim in the Premier League. So I'm sure David Moyes is doing his due diligence in terms of the summer signings.
Is that the cynical side of you coming out there, Tony, with the players out of contract and now they're only just starting to perform better? I think Gav Buckland said something along those lines on this morning's podcast, which, to be honest, it's not a theory too far away from the truth, really, when you think about evidence over the past couple of years. Just in football in general, when players know they're going to be out of contract, they somehow start pulling the finger out and maybe run that little bit faster, that little bit longer, train that little bit harder, and maybe that is having a bit of positive effect on this Everton team. Interesting, yeah.
It is. Listen, like if you look at it, and it's not just Everton, by the way. There's a lot of examples in the Premier League when players' contracts have been up for negotiation, and you know what? All of a sudden they're scoring 5 or 6 goals, and they get another 3-year deal, and you don't see them again. And that's just a perfect example. Everton aren't the only example. I think what's interesting to see what happens with the likes of players who are currently on the periphery of the team. And what I mean by that, the likes of Michael Keane, Ashley Young, who hasn't played recently since David Moyes came in. Jake O'Brien stepped in there and done a really good job. So then fringe players, Jack Harrison's another one. I wouldn't be sure Everton would be keeping hold of him. Mangala's another one as well. So these fringe players, you wouldn't, if from an Evertonian perspective, you wouldn't be staking a claim to try and keep hold of them. But the likes of just a guy you would. I thought he's not just had a great couple of games. He's been great all season, hasn't he? He's just a guy. Ashley Young has, to be fair. But would you be giving him another contract as well as Seamus Coleman? It's one of them, isn't it? Where Everton lie and how big the squad is in terms of where we're going to be at the Bramley Moor in the summer. I'm sure there'll be lots of conversations with Ashley Young, with Seamus Coleman, with Mangala, with Jaco, obviously Jack Harrison, and all these players that the contracts expire or the loans expire. So it's going to be an interesting conversation to have for David Moyes, especially.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, the attention's kind of already turning to the summer, isn't it? Let's face it. We know we've still got a lot of work to do before the end of the season. It's looking like it's been a quiet day, but it's looking like it's going to fade away. This deadline day without any major signing, which is absolutely fine. I think we've all agreed that if it's for the best, we don't want to be signing players just for the sake of it. Impossible really to answer this, Tony, because of what we've just mentioned there with the amount of players out of contract. It'd be different if all these players the contracts were set to run, and then we could say, where are we going to add to the squad? But it's twofold, isn't it? It's who are we going to keep, whose players are out of contract, but then how many players are we going to bring in, and what type of quality players are we going to bring in? So I think what I'll ask then is caliber of players. Where should Everton be looking for in terms of what type, like how high a quality quality and how high a caliber can we attract to come to the club in the summer?
It's an interesting question, Ian. On a basis of, we'll probably be looking at a striker straight away. We're hungry for one now, so we're going to be starving for one come the summertime at the Bramley Moor. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's contract is up. Beto will probably maybe move elsewhere. Obviously, Chermiti's still unproven, had a lot of injuries. Broja will be going back, so Everton will be in the market for a striker. But as you've touched on there, it's like, where's our quality like? There's going to be a lot of clubs in for strikers this summer, probably more than there's ever been before. You look at Liverpool straight away, there's been members that obviously they're not happy with Nunez's performance. They're going to be in for the centre forward. Manchester United aren't happy with Xerxes and Hoyland. They'll be in for the centre forward. What happens with Newcastle? If Isak goes, they could be possibly in for the centre forward. And they're Champions League clubs. We know Arsenal are absolutely desperate for a centre forward themselves. So there's your Champions League clubs already. Chelsea will be in the market themselves because obviously they're not rating Nicholas Jackson at the moment. They're really thin on the ground from a forward perspective. And these are elite Champions League clubs. So where they're in the market, I've just named 4 or 5. And then you're dropping down to teams in and around Europe. So then it comes down to us. So this is where the scouting and the recruitment team will be paid big bucks to go and find the next Alexander Isak, the next Ollie Watkins. These players are out there. If you fish around for them, they are out there. You've just got to go and try and find them. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of Champions League club scouts that'll be out there. Liverpool, Villa could be in the market themselves in regards to what happens with Ollie Watkins. So Everton won't be the only ones looking for strikers in the summer. It's just how you scout and how you recruit. That's what makes or breaks football clubs. You live and die by your recruitment. Mentioned it on last week's podcast in terms of these teams now that you're up against in the Premier League. You're up against world-class players. You're up against world-class managers in world-class stadiums. You're also up against world-class recruitment teams. It's like, which recruitment team is better than the other one? And that's basically what it is now. You live and die by your recruitment. And Everton's hasn't been good enough for a long while. Hence why they're down the bottom of the league and they're struggling. But this is what we've had a new manager bounce come in. And I'm sure David Moyes, he's emphasised many times on record, he doesn't want to be anywhere near the bottom. He needs to get Everton back to where he thinks they should be. And that's challenging for Europe and knocking on the door of the top 4. And if he gets what he wants, I trust him in terms of the recruitment. He's mentioned we've got an elite stadium in the summer, and he's also mentioned that he wants elite players playing in it. So we'll stand by his word, and hopefully he can keep to that promise.
Is it a bit too bold of me to say we may already have a striker who could score goals in our ranks in Beto if you play to his strengths, or do you think maybe it was just a bit of a one-off game, so, or do you expect them to carry on with that goal-scoring form over the next couple of games?
I don't, to be honest. Listen, you can't help but love Beto's attitude, his enthusiasm, his work ethic. He reminds you of Dennis Strakwalerski, doesn't he? He plays a lone figure there. He runs, he takes lost causes. He just looks out of sorts when he's trying to hold on to the ball, but he's working his backside off, isn't he? And God love him, he's scoring goals, but the trouble is you're not going to play against a Leicester defence like that every week, and that's the problem. There's no coincidence he found 2. He could have had 3 or 4, but that was against one of the worst defences we've seen this season in Leicester. I've seen enough of Beto, to be honest, in terms of over the past 18 months. He's just not good enough. I think we've wasted a lot of money in terms of his recruitment and wages and whatnot on him. I don't think we'll recoup that, to be honest. I'll be surprised if we do. Maybe his 2 goals, it probably would have been the ideal time to actually sell him if Dominic Calvert-Lewin was fit, to be honest. But on the basis of that, no, it's he's not. He doesn't look up to Premier League standards. He is, I'd say, if where Everton lie at the moment, I think if Everton was to sign a number 9, I think he'd probably be 3rd choice. But he's not good enough for Everton Football Club, in my opinion. He scored the 2 goals on the basis of playing against one of the worst teams in the Premier League, and we're not going to be playing against that. I'll be surprised if he does anything against Liverpool and Bournemouth the weekend. I hope he proves me wrong, because I love his attitude, and I'd be more worried if he wasn't working. But the lad's working his socks off, and fair play to him. He's getting his goals that he deserves for his work. But in terms of quality, he's not up there, to be honest.
I'm just going to timestamp that quote. So Beto's not good enough. So Monday the 3rd of February at 10 to 10 at night. So when he's on his 10th game scoring run, I'm gonna throw that clip right back at you and then just see what you say. Only joking. No, we'll see what happens with Beto. Obviously, I say it's early days. He's been with the club for a while now. He just maybe hasn't had the chance, or we haven't maybe played to his strengths. So I think now, if we are going to play to his strengths, I completely get the Leicester defensive, frailties that they shown on Saturday, but he's still got to put them away, hasn't he? At the end of the day, and they were good finishes. So we'll see. We'll see how he goes. Interesting dynamic. So actually, a couple of people have mentioned Kevin Thelwell in the comments. I didn't necessarily agree with this, but one of my mates said, because obviously we know his contract's up in the summer and we don't know whether he's going to be with the club moving forward. But one of my mates kind of suggested, well, if he's not going to be there in the summer, we might as well just sack him and let him go tomorrow, straight after deadline day. And his logic behind that was purely for the fact that, well, the director of football or whoever's in charge of transfers is planning for the summer. And if Kevin Thelwell's not going to be there in the summer, then why should he be looking after transfers? Now, I know David Moyes is there, and more than likely he is going to be there in the summer, and he's going to be planning the strategy behind who we're going to sign and who's going to leave. But the next couple of months is going to be interesting, isn't it? The dynamic of the planning and everything that goes beyond that, really.
Do you know what? It's an interesting point that probably not many Evertonians have thought about in terms of where Kevin Thelwell lies at the moment, because obviously, as you've just touched on there, the transfer window shuts tonight. So his job, in theory, if he was here for obviously maybe another 12 months, he should be obviously recruiting now and going to scout now, and obviously getting his recruitment team and a scouting team together and go, right, we are looking for a striker. We need to scour Europe, South America, Championship, etc., etc. But as things currently stand, he's not going to be here. His contract's up, and there's been no murmurs of discussions of an extension to that at all. To be honest, we've very rarely seen any comments from him in terms of signing. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Charlie Alcaraz situation, if there's some kind of statement from him in that. So yeah, it's good. I fully accept the point in terms of, well, what is his job? Listen, his job just isn't recruitment. It's academy. It's everything else. Do you know what I mean? So I'm sure he'd be looking at players to come from the under 16s to the 18s, from the 18s to the 23s. It's quite a big moment for the under 18s in 2 weeks' time, isn't it? Playing at the Bramley Moore Stadium themselves. So there'll be a lot of it won't just be about planning for the summer in terms of Kevin Thelwell's duties. It'll be obviously academy, etc. And in terms of negotiating contracts, I'm sure, with the likes of Ashley Young's representatives and discussing loans, etc. for the future, in terms of, like, you're probably having conversations with David Moyes and saying, listen, do you want me to send me scouting department to go and watch striker B, striker C? So it won't just be for this summer. I think it'll be in terms of communication with David Moyes, and then getting the message out for players that David Moyes is after, and then going to send your scouting recruitment out to go and look at them. So yeah, it's not just about the summer. It'll be about the academy, under 18s, under 16s, and etc. going forwards, in terms of, like, going to find this next striker that David Moyes desperately wants.
We've had a comment from Kraft Matthew on Beto. Tony's kind of combating what you were saying and maybe agreeing with me a little bit, so I'll read it out and show it on the screen. Kraft Matthew says, Beto scored double figures in Serie A for a mid-table side. Can't be that bad if utilised properly. What do you make of
that? It's the point, isn't it? What's he scored? Like, is it with using easy? Didn't he score a couple of goals? He's got a half decent season, didn't he? But listen, Premier League, Serie A, it's two different leagues, isn't it? The Premier League is just so elite, and it's no coincidence that the teams in the Premier League win all the trophies in Europe. We've seen the dominance of what Manchester City have done and what Liverpool have done, and Chelsea over the years. It's just a dominant force in the Premier League, and it's chalk and cheese, and that's where you have to go. I think whoever's watched Beto hasn't watched him for a long period of time. They've just judged him on the back of that one season. He scored quite a lot of goals with a mid-table team and thought, right, he's the man. Because you listen, Evertonians aren't soft. Sometimes you're looking at players and go, he's got it straight away. You knew. I remember when I watch Ilimandiai this pre-season for Everton. It was a Preston away. It was, and funny enough, I think Jake O'Brien scored that day, and Jasper Lindstrom played as well. And I was in the away end, and I seen Ilimandiai on the ball, and within 5 minutes, you knew straight away. I know it was only against Preston at the time, but you just knew that lad's got it. He has got it. He's just a brilliant, brilliant footballer. You could see the aura, the arrogance from him. You just seen he was a very, very good footballer. And that's where obviously your bread and butter is, and you just knew straight away. But in terms of Beto, he looks out of sorts. He doesn't look as if he can hold the ball up properly. We can't judge him off the Leicester game. We can only judge him from what we've seen in periods this season and last season. He's just not good enough for Premier League football. Yeah, are we utilising him the way we should be? Well, that's down to the recruitment team, isn't it? When they signed him from Udinese, was he playing as a lone striker? Was he playing with a number 10 behind him? All these things that adds up to in terms of your recruitment going forward.
We've had another reply from Matthew. I'll show you. You're going to laugh at this one. I don't know if you can see it on the screen. Tony has a secret Beto tattoo.
No tattoos. Don't have
Where
no
is
tattoos.
It,
I have no tattoos. No tattoos, Ian. Don't even have an Everton one. No tattoos, mate. No, can't fault the lads. Listen, love his work rate, but in terms of scoring goals on a consistent basis, we need to go and find the next Ollie Watkins. We need to go and find the next Alexander Isak. That's where you're scouting. We're not going to obviously go and buy Gyökeres, who obviously Manchester United are after. We're not going to go and sign these top quality centre forwards that Arsenal are after. We need to go and find the next Ollie Watkins, and that's where David Moyes usually shops around, doesn't he? He come from Brentford. Let's hope David Moyes can go and find one.
Okay, well, the Wi-Fi I think has done as well so far, but it is starting to fade a little bit. So we'll finish off in a sec, but I guess we'll finish off on a positive. We'll talk about the Leicester game, give you the final word on it. We talked about it in the Royal Blue studio earlier this morning with Chris Beasley and Gav Buckland. So there's a long, in-depth podcast on that. I think the biggest thing that's come out of, certainly from following the Leicester game, with it being 3 wins in 4, and obviously previously before Moyes come in, I think it was something like 3 wins in 19. A lot of questions are being asked. What's David Moyes done? What's he doing differently? How's he tweaked things? So, I mean, from your point of view, it's all opinion, I guess, but you can see some of the obvious things that he's done. But what do you think he's done to change Everton's form around completely? Let's face it.
He's got them playing a little bit of football for a start. He hasn't been as negative. I think Jamie Carragher made a piece on Monday Night Football today saying he's actually asking his defenders to play football. I think he showed a clip of James Tarkowski where Tarkowski normally goes long with his diagonals, where on Saturday, seeing the killer ball he played through for Beto, and that's just a prime example that we were led to believe that these players weren't good enough every single week, and it is what it is, and we're just getting 10 men behind the ball. We've got a very good centre-back in Jared Brantwaite. We haven't utilised. He's a very good ball player. How many times in the past 2 or 3 weeks have we seen Brantwaite maraud into midfield and start playing balls? We wouldn't have seen James Tarkowski play that ball he played on Saturday, right round, obviously, on the floor for Beto. We wouldn't have seen James Garner play that ball he did. We wouldn't have seen Jake O'Brien in at right back. There's a lot of examples. We wouldn't have seen the pressing that we've had from Everton's midfield. On striker, it's night and day. It really, really is. There's numerous examples I could say about the difference between Sean Dyche and David Moyes. But one manager gets Everton and one manager doesn't. One manager knows exactly what Evertonians want and one manager didn't. Listen, I'm not dishing the job Sean Dyche did in the previous 18 months, but this season has been nothing short of a disaster, and he knew it as well. He knew he was out of his depth. He was playing negative football. It was 10 men behind the ball, open for second balls and set pieces. David Moyes has come in. He's put Jake O'Brien in at right back as a basically you can come in and shuffle in at centre back. He's made Jasper Lindstrom work his backsides off. He's obviously got Iliman Diaye playing a lot closer to the centre forward. He's got Everton pressing as a team, and Matty Hunter in packs. And that's what the Evertonians want. They want to get off the seat. They want to see the team work. And it's night and day. Honestly, I could give you 99 examples of the differences between Sean Dyche and Everton. So it's just a breath of fresh air at the moment, and long may it continue.
Great comments here, which I'll put up on the screen. You know, I mean, we touched upon this earlier. I think I suggested that we getting a better manager than what we had previously with Moyes, and I think the caliber of manager that Moyes is, if he didn't have his association with Everton previously, it's very doubtful that we would have got a manager as good as David Moyes to come to the club, because if he was the number one target, how quick we got him in was really pleasing. If you look who was next on the list and who was second, who was third, who was fourth, probably weren't in the league of David Moyes at all. So just a question there. Moyes is obviously matured tactically with O'Brien at right back. He's created an option to have three at the back off the ball, sending Mikalenko and Lindstrom forward and providing more width to create chances. So I guess it's not surprising as such, but are you just pleased that David Moyes has kind of proven a lot of people wrong, a lot of the pundits wrong, of how good he actually is tactically as a manager, his man management? I mean, I'll be honest, Todd, as well, I don't love Everton playing out from the back. I don't like us knocking it around the back, but we just look so much assured on the ball. I know it was against Leicester and obviously a poor side, but we were knocking it round the back there between Tarkowski, between Branthwaite, Mikalenko, and then if there wasn't an avenue to go forward, it was a bit of patience, and it was time to come back. And if we needed to go long, we would go long. Hence, you look at the Corey goal, no issues with a long ball if it's going to be, ineffective areas and stuff like that. So, yeah, I guess David Moyes proving all the pundits wrong who thought he was going to be just the exact same as Sean Dyche.
And you know what, Ian, he said right, it's horses for courses. Don't forget, you seen how resolute Everton were against Brighton. That weren't great to watch, but they got the job done. I'm sure when they're playing against Liverpool next Wednesday, it'll be a different Everton than you're seeing against Leicester. And that's the beauty of David Moyes, is that he will do his own work and his due diligence on opposition players and how they set up. He won't set up like Sean Dyche and just play 10 men behind the ball and hope for anything that falls our way. Against Leicester, these teams that we struggle to break down, yet we may have got results against, but we struggle to break them down. You've seen this season against Crystal Palace, it was an awful game. We got out of jail at the end with Dwight McNeil. So all these things, David Moyes is a lot different in terms of he's just got plan A, he's got plan B, he's got plan C. And that's what just the players that he's currently got. These aren't any of his players. And I'm sure he would have been a shock to the system at the Aston Villa game. He's thought, hang on, I might need one or two players here. But them 3 wins, due to his coaching, due to his tactics, due to a couple of shoes probably being said to a couple of players, and a couple of arms around the shoulder as well. Don't forget, these players are human like everyone else, and sometimes they need an arm around the shoulder. And you've seen Jasper Lindstrom straight away. Looks a different player completely. Jake O'Brien, another different player. So sure, a lot of love has come from David Moyes with these players and arm around the shoulder, and you can actually see they're playing with a smile on the face. And we haven't seen these Everton players smile for a long, long period of time, and you can see they're enjoying the football. They're enjoying being coached by David Moyes, and you don't manage that many Premier League games. What did he? Was he on his 1,000 game? Was it something, or 700 game the other day against
700? Yeah.
700 game. You don't manage that many games in the Premier League without being a very good manager. There's only Arsene Wenger and Sir Alex Ferguson that have managed more than him, which says a lot. He's now got a trophy to his CV as well. Look what he did with West Ham. And what I like about him, he is flexible. We've seen different sides to the way he manages Everton in the 2-3 weeks that he's been here. So yeah, long may that continue.
Well, I think we'll call it a day, Tony, for today's show. Any final thoughts? Do you want you want to give us an early Bournemouth prediction for the fourth round of the FA Cup on Saturday?
Oh, I don't want to get carried away, but if we do reach the cup final, the Southampton game gets moved, doesn't it? Because it's cup final weekend, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can we dream? Can we dream? There's a lot of examples.
Let's just try and get through Bournemouth first before we can start dreaming about an FA. If we get to the quarters, let's see how we go. If we get to the quarters, so it's going to be a tough game against Bournemouth. I mean, I know they're just on the back of the defeat against Liverpool, which in a way kind of might work out in our favour. I know Bournemouth have got a couple of injuries. I guess we'd have to. Their manager's going to have to consider whether they play a strong team. Maybe they'd be fighting more for, a league position rather than an FA Cup, FA Cup run, I guess.
Well, let's put it this way. I think their fans and their players won't fancy playing Everton at Goodison Park at the moment on the basis of what we've done in the past 2 weeks. They won't be looking forward to this. In fact, I think the fans have only sold the Paddock and the lower Bullens. I think Everton have taken the upper Bullens for Saturday as well. So Everton have a lot more support there. And imagine all you see straight from the off again, not obviously asking for the 10-second goal, but if Everton get out the block straight away like they did against Tottenham, like they did against Leicester, and get after Bournemouth, throw a couple of tackles in, the crowd's up, the crowd responds, and all of a sudden the wind's in our sails once more. We're at home. We've beat many decent teams at home this season, as we've seen. And don't forget, Sean Dyche's Everton was 2-0 up against Bournemouth this season. So they can be got at. We were awful away in Sean Dyche's last game, but I'm sure we can put a positive performance on. It's a bit of a free hit, isn't it? There's less pressure on these Everton players in the FA Cup compared to the points. They've got the points on the board, and let's go after them. Goodison Park. It's a Saturday. It's at 3:00. There's not going to be many of them left. So yeah, let's get after them, and we can dream, can't we? A 2-1 victory will do me, and then I can start dreaming of Wembley.
I mean, without a doubt, we can certainly dream, and we definitely owe Bournemouth one. Maybe it's third time lucky this season, and we'll definitely see how we go. Go on. So what was your prediction? Did you give one then?
Yeah, I think I'm going for a 2-1 victory. 2-1 victory.
2-1. Okay. Well, we're getting a lot of nice comments on the stream about the show. Obviously, the Wi-Fi just about held up, so we are going to finish off now. But just a quick one as well. If you're having, you don't know already, that we've got Alan Stubbs' interview out on Thursday. Chris Beasley did that with Alan. It's a really bumper show. It goes, it's not long. Long's not the wrong phrase. It's just basically a bumper show, and Alan goes really into depth in his career, in his personal life, and all the associated things that he's been through within that time period. So it's definitely worth a watch. So keep an eye out for that on all audio platforms and the YouTube channel on Thursday. And then we'll be back with our normal Friday show to preview the Bournemouth game. And hopefully I'll give my prediction then, which I'm sure I'll go for a win without a doubt. No problem there. Any final thoughts, Todd, before we do finish off?
No, as I touched on there at the start, Ian, I think the results have changed the landscape of Everton's recruitment, especially tonight. Looks like Charlie Alcaraz will be the only one through the door. But the 3 wins have, just give everyone a lift. And I think it's knocked the stuffing out of the 3 teams that are currently in the relegation zone, to be fair. They probably would have seen Tottenham, probably seen Everton play Tottenham, Everton play Brighton. And they probably thought, right, they're not getting any points there. We ended up getting 6, and then we probably played Leicester. I think many Evertonians, when we were playing Leicester, probably would have took a draw. To be honest, probably thought, take 7 points from these 3 games. We've took 9 now, and I think it's literally knocked the stuffing out of the 3 teams below us completely. And they need now, there's only 14, 15 games left. Any of them 3 teams now need to win 5 or 6 of their remaining 15 games, and they haven't done it all season, so wouldn't expect them to do it in the next 15. And if they do, that's having said that, Everton aren't going to win anymore. So yeah, the wind's in our sails at the moment, so let's carry that momentum to have a nice little cup run 30 years on from our previous success.
Absolutely, good way to finish. And give us a like on this video stream, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Most importantly, enjoy the rest of your night, enjoy the rest of your week. I've been Ian Croll, joined by Tony Scott, and Joe Thomas was here, but he did unfortunately have to shoot off. And this has been the Royal Blue Podcast.